Hi, Campus, and welcome to the second episode of Half-BloodCast.
To pick up where we left off last time, Percy was attacked by his pre-algebra teacher who had turned into a monster. And then he got gaslit by his entire class, his best friend and his teacher, into believing that she never existed.
So today we're going to be talking about the second episode called Three Old Ladies Knit the Socks of Death. Percy is on the verge of a mental breakdown. No one at school remembers Mrs. Dodds. In fact, they think that they've had a completely different teacher the whole time. He is haunted by nightmares of the monster, which has caused his already bad grades to plummet to a new low. This, combined with him snapping at his English teacher, leads to him being expelled. Again. Percy is sure Grover is hiding something, which is only confirmed when he overhears him speak with Mr. Brunner. What is the summer solstice deadline? Why is Grover treating him like he is dying after they saw three old ladies knitting giant socks? Well, hopefully we'll find some answers to those questions.
So to start off, no one remembers Mrs. Dodds. No one. It's actually getting so bad that he keeps trying to surprise bring her up, and people are just looking at him like he's crazy.
He's actually saying, I'm going to see if someone actually breaks, and then reveal that she existed.
It is only he would believe this. He would fully believe that he was crazy if it wasn't because Grover always hesitates.
Because he wants to reveal that secret.
Or maybe he just is hiding. Yeah, well, he's hiding something. He clearly seems like he's hiding something.
Anyway, Percy has nightmares about Mrs. Dodds, which, as we mentioned, cause him already to lower his grades. He can't focus. It's only getting worse, and obviously gets a bit snappy. And he ends up calling an English teacher. What does he call her?
He calls him an old sot, and he doesn't actually know what it means. He just says it feels great.
Fair. Really fair.
This leads to another expulsion for our serial student, school expulsion student. I don't even know if that was right, but you get it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Percy doesn't actually care too much about being expelled. He is kind of homesick. He wants to go see his mom. He's actually really excited about going home to see his mom. However, as he thinks on it, he kind of does think that he will miss things like his view from his window, and he's going to miss Grover, and he's actually really worried about what will happen to Grover while he's not there. Because he's an angel.
Yeah, but what's amazing is that despite the expulsion, Percy doesn't want to let Mr. Brunner down. So he still studies for that Latin exam.
As the only one. That is the only exam he studies for, because he just don't want to be, he don't want to let him down.
Yeah.
But
as he's dyslexic, it's just quite an impossible task for him.
He finds it quite hard, especially with the names, to get the names right, because there's a lot of names that are very similar to each other. It actually gets to the point where he's like, should I give up? But eventually he decides to just, go down. He reaches his breaking point, and he decides to go ask Mr. Brunner for help in hopes that maybe he can give him some pointers, or maybe just apologize in advance. If he fails, it wasn't because he didn't try.
Exactly.
But he finds out that Mr. Brunner already has company.
Yeah, he overhears Mr. Brunner talking to Grover.
Oh, lo and behold.
Yeah, and during that conversation, they actually reveal accidentally reveal some information. First of all, that Mrs. Dodd actually existed.
Yeah, well, liar, liar, pants on fire.
Second of all, something did actually happen at the museum. Another thing that comes up, there's a deadline.
A deadline, which is the summer solstice, and he doesn't really understand what the summer solstice thing is about.
Yeah.
What deadline?
Then they talk about something called the mist.
And they mention a kindly one.
And that Percy is in some kind of danger.
And then he overhears Grover saying that he can't fail his duties again. And
we don't know what all of that means.
What duties? What is he talking about? This is a 12-year-old child.
Yeah, and Mr. Brunner says, "Oh, you didn't fail," so he kind of tries to comfort him. Also, he's not 12-year-old because he's been held back a few times.
But has he though? Is this just something
Or is
Percy
it- yeah.
assumes?
To be fair, yeah, Percy is quite unreliable. We established that.
Percy doesn't know what's going on. Percy doesn't know how old his best friend is. Maybe he's 13.
Maybe.
But basically, yeah, Mr. Brunner does say that he isn't failing and that he should have seen her for what she was.
What if that means?
Whatever that means. Like Percy at this point is listening in on a conversation that seems quite private, but also very confusing.
Yeah.
He drops his book.
And then he realizes, obviously, that they've heard it because they stop speaking. And then he sees a shadow, which is much bigger than a person in a wheelchair. Just kind of like, I know he mentioned something about like noises that he
hears. He doesn't really understand because it doesn't sound like footsteps. And the shadow that he sees seems to be holding something like an archer's bow.
and there's also some sniffing noises that
And he is very confused, but manages to pick up his book and run into the nearest room to hide. He does not get caught, but he is very confused about what he has witnessed, what he has heard. And then when he eventually returns to his room, Grover's there.
Like nothing happened.
Grover's there. Sir?
But yeah, I mean, the day after he takes the test, and after the test he has an exchange with Brunner. He basically tells him that maybe it's better for him that he leaves Yancy, and that he's not normal, and that makes Percy feel really humiliated because he says that in front of the whole class.
And it's also because Mr. Brunner is actually someone Percy looks up to.
Exactly.
It's actually quite brutal.
And like he tries to spin it around. He tries to like making it a good thing, saying, "Oh, it is a good thing," but also
Percy
a child is not gonna understand that.
Percy has low self-esteem. He will, I guess we established Percy is has a bit of an imposter syndrome. He doesn't really know his own abilities very well, and I think he's already self-conscious about his dyslexia and his ADHD. So someone telling him this,
Couldn't he say, "You special, you exceptional"?
yeah, special makes it sound negative.
But he said you're not normal. That's even worse.
So, oh my god, poor Percy. But yeah, it's just Percy is ready to leave school at this point. That was the final nail in his coffin. And what he does dread is saying goodbye to Grover, but thankfully
He
turns
doesn't
out
have to.
no, Grover is coming with. Or he's going into the city anyway.
They're both going into the city, and they take a bus together.
And basically, Grover is acting super sus. He is looking around every corner, out every window. So Percy, who has actually been quite annoyed with Grover after that conversation he overheard, mostly because I guess he doesn't want to admit that he overheard it, but at the same time he feels like he is being lied to. But he basically sees this behavior and kind of snaps and is looking for a kindly one. Be well aware that he has no idea what kindly one is, but he just pretends he does.
But then Grover tells Percy that he was trying to protect him, while Percy reveals that he overheard a conversation, but he tells him, "Oh, I was trying to protect you," gives him his address, which Percy thinks, "Oh, this is his summer address where he's going to stay at his mansion or something."
Basically, the card says Half-Blood Hill. Is it Half-Blood Hill? It says Half-Blood Hill in it, and he tries to say it out loud, and Grover immediately tells him to be quiet, which is also super sus.
But that's when Percy is like, "Oh, because he's one of the rich kids."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Percy is actually quite oh, Percy has a holiday home.
Yeah.
God forbid a child has hobbies, or is well into I don't even remember what it's called. Estates.
Oh, yeah.
God forbid that a child has several estates.
It's not the child's though; it would be the parents.
No. Percy takes it as Grover. He takes it quite personally. But basically, the bus breaks down.
Yeah, exactly.
At the perfect time, I think. I don't think it is. I mean, we have kind of resolved whatever anger this between them. the fun fact is that like Percy is wondering what Grover means when he says he's been protecting him.
Yeah.
Because Percy's like, I've been protecting you.
Exactly, because you were getting bullied and I was there to fight for you.
I was there throwing Nancy Boba Fett in the fountain and you're there protecting me.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Nevertheless, they go out of the bus because it's way too hot to stay on it. And there's like a little fruit stand.
There's a fruit stand like across several lanes of traffic and it's like super hot.
And Percy noticed 3 ladies sitting there knitting what he describes as the biggest pair of socks that he's ever seen.
He does not understand what is going on, but he is watching them. And as he does so, one of them is watching him and she reaches up and cuts the yarn.
And that's when Grover actually notices them.
Yeah.
And he's trying to like reassure himself, being like, they're not looking at Percy.
They're not
certainly
not
looking at
Percy. But
Percy.
Percy is like, yeah, they are.
So Grover tries to get him back on the bus, which he doesn't want to go.
Percy doesn't want to go back on the bus
yeah.
because it's really hot. And he's like, yeah, I don't think so. But Grover is being really insistent that they should.
But that's when the bus gets fixed. So the driver's like,
yeah,
go back on the bus.
But he keeps like, what Percy really knows is that he sees them and she keeps cutting the yarn and he can actually hear it.
Yeah.
Even if it's like far away, he can hear them cut the yarn.
Yeah.
And he gets quite like, even he feels like a bit weirded out by it. And then, the bus gets fixed and they're like, Grover's like hauling them back on the bus. And well, he feels sick. Percy feels really sick, actually. He feels feverish. And
Grover actually looks sick too. So once they actually get to the city, Grover's like insistent that Percy lets him go home with him.
The thing is, like, it's like Percy, I think, is quite even like kind of terrified just because Grover is. Like, Grover is terrified by these ladies.
I mean, Percy doesn't know what's going on. So.
And Percy asks, like, what Grover is hiding this time. Like this time, I really like that he's way more direct now. Like, he's like, he knows there's something that's not being told. And he's like, what are you hiding? And Grover is asking, what did they look like to you?
Yeah.
And then Percy says, are they like Mrs. Dodds? But even as he says that, like, Grover's whole like reaction makes him believe that they're actually something worse.
Yeah, and then he asks them what actually he saw them doing.
And he says, well, I saw them cut the yarn. And, you know, this is like Grover then does something, a gesture.
I
like
always wonder what what exactly does it look like.
He does a gesture.
It's like a claw.
We don't know for now. We will soon find out. No, why are you apologizing? It's so fine. Because I keep forgetting that we actually get told what it looks like eventually, but we're not getting told.
Okay.
No, it's so fine because I was like, I every time I read this, even if I know now, I'm still like, wonder what it looks like.
Like, I have a picture in my head what it looks like, so I always imagine them doing that, but I feel like I might be really wrong.
Well, if it was what you described, I don't think you are, because he does, I think it's like in the next chapter. So
okay.
But basically he does a gesture to get back on track. He does a gesture that is so ancient that Percy actually feels the severity of it. And it actually like freaks him out a bit because he feels that this is actually way more serious than he thought.
But also Grover is like, I don't want it to be like last time. It's always 6th grade. They're never getting like, it's always 6th grade when that happens, whatever. And Percy is really getting scared at this point.
Exactly, because he doesn't understand what he doesn't understand what exactly Grover thinks is happening.
Yeah.
Like he just feels it instinctually, like something is wrong, but Grover is like Grover like clearly knows something, and Percy at this point has established that Grover knows something that he doesn't, which is why he looks to him, and the fact that Grover is reacting like this,
and obviously something bad, and potentially
worse.
Something bad that's going to happen to Percy.
Yeah, and then I mean, they make their way back into the city, and
he promises Grover that he'll wait for him so he can walk him home, but then
not good. To look at like with this, that's basically the chapter. To look at like the myth that's involved, I think you are very well versed. But if you have watched Disney's Hercules, you will probably be a bit familiar with this.
So basically what we have here is Moirai, which is three fates basically in English, personification of destiny. So there are three sisters: Clotho, who's the spinner, then Lachesis. I never know how to read those names.
The names are incredibly difficult, so take this with a grain of salt.
So she's the allotter basically, and then Atropos, who is the
innovator.
No, she's not. She's invincible. She's like I don't know how to read that word.
Inevitable.
Yes, there you go.
A metaphor of death.
Yeah, she's the metaphor of death, and it's funny because their role is to ensure that, but basically, every being, mortal and divine, fulfills their destiny. So basically, lives out their life assigned to the destiny that was assigned to it, basically. But there are some variations of it when they are actually commanded by Zeus. So in some variations, they control everyone's destiny and kind of make sure that they're on track. But in some of them, Zeus has control over other people's destiny.
I think I prefer that he's not in control.
Yeah, me too.
Because I feel like that gives him way too much power.
But I feel like in the world of Percy Jackson, Zeus doesn't have control.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it does in Disney's Hercules either. Just saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you will, like the whole snapping of the yarn, anyone will recognize that from that cartoon. When it turns golden and it becomes a god.
It's quite a symbol though, the snapping of the yarn and three fates, just in our culture.
Yeah, and does it mean? Does it mean Percy is dying? I sure hope not.
Well,
I sure hope not.
Anything can happen.
To kind of this chapter we didn't really get introduced to any characters, so we actually have no character highlights.
But I need to tell you about my favorite moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so fair. I think we have the same.
Hold on. You think so?
I think so. I know us both.
Not here. Hold on.
I know us both.
So basically, where do we hear that? So there's this conversation between Grover and Percy when Grover realizes Percy sees the fate and he's like, tell me they're not looking at you. They are, aren't they? And then Percy goes, yeah, weird, huh? You think those socks will fit me? That's such a Percy comment. I love it. And then obviously Grover goes, not funny, Percy, not funny at all. And then that's when they take out the huge pair of scissors, gold and silver, long-bladed, like shears. And I heard Grover catch his breath.
That's the thing. That is my favorite moment as well. But it is actually like way further down. My first one is when Percy just want to do his best. Like, I have pink stickers in mind for when things are making me emotional. And the amount of them is just like, Percy tried his best. And then like every time I'm like, you're so right. He did. But then I also am just like, when he says he will be fine because he's just going home to his mom.
Yeah.
I'm like I love that, like, that is just like, I feel like that just kind of like, we have not been introduced to his mom yet, but I think it's like really establishing that this is his safe space. And I think a character like Percy who has this many problems really needs a safe space.
He does.
And then my last favorite moment is the Greek gesture that we haven't.
Oh, is it? Okay.
That again we don't know what means, but it's just like the fact that like Percy notes it and knows it's an ancient Greek gesture.
Yeah, how does he know?
And he just feels it. Who knows? And he just feels the severity of it. And I think that is just an interesting moment. It's like quite foreshadowing.
It is.
And what do you have a quote that you think defines the chapter?
So I think again, I don't have a specific quote. I have a conversation between Grover and Brunner when we learn all those things, like Grover knows something indeed happened at the museum, deadlines established, so that actually gives us like a hint that we will have a deadline as a reader, that something is going to happen.
That is very true.
Like you have a sense of urgency and a sense of like tension because of that conversation. So
Especially
that's really good.
Because we know they've just been let out of school.
Exactly.
Oh,
And there's a deadline.
It's super stressful. The summer solstice is on the 21st of June, right?
Producer Mel, can you check that for us?
Fact check.
In the meantime, when producer Mel was checking, I'm just going to say that, Bruno literally says, now let's just worry about keeping Percy alive until next fall. That's literally what he says.
That's just also, like, I can't believe that, like, Percy held it together. Producer Mel has confirmed it is the 21st of June.
Actually.
It's the 20th of June. Well, the longest day of the year is the 21st. So,
okay, so it's
I mean, maybe,
before
actually, I think maybe that's also varying, but I don't know. My point is, I think, like, I can't believe that Percy, like, held it in for so long. With, like, what he had heard. Like, I understand he doesn't understand, but at the same time, I'm like, if my best friend was talking with a teacher and was like, I'm worried for him. He's going to die. I would be like...
He didn't say he's going to die.
Okay.
We need to keep him alive.
Yeah, but that is so obvious.
Until June the 20th. Although knowing Percy, he might think that summer solstice is like in 20 years.
Yeah, or like, in August. But I would say, like, my favorite quote happens, like, in the end, like, literally when Percy is trying to understand. Well, it's not my favorite quote. It's just the quote I think that actually defines the chapter. And it happens when Percy has kind of, like, is trying to understand what is going on. Because, he doesn't understand, but he understands that Grover is freaking out. So basically, he promises Grover he can walk him home from the station, and then he goes, is this like a superstition or something? Because why is Grover like walking him home? And then he goes, Grover, that snipping of the yarn, does that mean someone is going to die? And then he just says, he looks at me mournfully, like he was already picking the kind of flowers I'd like best on my coffin.
I love that moment.
I know, but I mean, I'm like, Jesus, this child. Like, I mean, either, like, if you're looking from Percy's point of view, either Grover is like a drama queen.
Yeah.
Like an absolute drama queen, just freaking out of 3 old ladies. Or, like, this is actually serious. And, like...
Also, these are the last words of the chapter. So that's what we end on.
We are ending on it because Mr. D has called for meetings. He would like all camp counselors to talk about the behavior of our cabins. And I would just like to say, the Apollo cabin, amazing. We're having dance parties every night.
Yeah, it's their fault, basically. Okay, well, see you next time.
What do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean? Are you saying we're disturbing peace?
You're the naughty ones.
I think we're great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.